Good morning. It's 8:38 a.m. No, it's 9 o'clock on 3/15/2023. I really have to force myself to do this. The argument that I should be using my experience as a 62-year-old man who was raised in Pittsburgh by educated parents in the public school system, living in Tacoma after years in Seattle's International District, in order to be helpful to my peers, has somewhat gone by the wayside the more I've learned about how my so called peers have targeted and used me over the years. Um, but we live in a world where there's a war of issues that are being framed by a media who impinge the dominant algorithms, meaning the flow of ideas. They frame the issues. And I thought I'd try to offer an argument for a better system of raising a nation of detectives regarding the swamp of issues that have been used to dismantle um, American civilization. It seems charming to talk in these extremes. It seems like everyone does. Is there any truth to the extreme concerns that so many people bring to the table? Another question is there any truth to the idea that the people bringing these issues to the table have any kind of answers? Um, these are the issues that bring me forward to engage in a contribution of public discussion in the event that anybody is interested in my views. I already know that people are interested in hanging me for my views. So there's combative purpose. That rather than allow my views to influence anybody, they watch them to see how they can weaken them and would regard a conversation like this as Crary's last stand. So I'll talk a bit about some of the things that are in my field of experience that are probably outside your field of experience. For example, the last time I saw Steve Scioli of a rock band in Pittsburgh known as Car Sickness, who used to live with um, a companion of mine from the art schools named Ray Geiger, who's passed away. Um, was in a small kitchen for breakfast in Bloomfield, an area of Pittsburgh that still has some small businesses, and is across the street from a martyrs church for fallen Blue Angels of the area. Well, I knew the man who made the stained glass windows. He was a insane individual who helped hold me hostage as a child and participated in the creation of the Texas school book that I discovered in my possessions at Pitt, which explains why they killed Kennedy and released the AIDS virus. So there are corollary issues pertaining to what um, the police sergeant regimen has done to make it appear that I was negligent in not telling the perpetrators what was going on with me. And Steve Scioli happened to cross wires with what I did in 1979, which was hitchhike to St. Louis to make contact on Robert Fripp's Human Contact tour and stopped off in East St. Louis to watch Jimmy Carter's speech addressing the accusation from people like Peter Gabriel that he was responsible for our nation's malaise, which I did not believe was really going on. And I didn't really believe he was responsible for it. And he was a much better president than Reagan ever could have been. And he should have been reelected. It's one of the tragedies, like the loss of James Garfield, in our national legacy and estate. And Scioli used to brag that he was like this with Robert Fripp. So he worked at a bookstore called Mandela, which I have petitioned for investigation to see if they knew Philomeno O'D. His brother, Tony O'D, said he stayed in Pittsburgh after a conversation with my father. And he knew Dilip, who mocked me. You are so great in exactly the manner of the author of the Texas School Book. Mandela Books was also just a block away from Caliban Books, which was suffered arrest of their proprietor for an $8 million museum heist. He had organized a gang that drove recklessly at Kelly's school, elementary school, and tried to finger me as the driver. I was so indignant I nearly dissociated. And I reported him for mail fraud. They said, stop spreading rumors about distinguished people. Well, Claymont had sent me Fripp's address, and since Scioli was like this, and I didn't really want to bother Flippy Tune because he was being so petulant. I just said, well, you want his address, I have it on a piece of paper. It was probably a mistake because, I mean, you know, when I associate that gang with what I eat, I mean, something got in my mouth from one of them dudes. So I'd be careful, you know. But what they did was a war game about fidelity. You know, like Eric Slagle used to call the Cathedral of Learning the Peener of Learning. And he'd say, watch out for glass in your food, and we know where you live. And this was the mindset of ES for uh, Aaron Snyder, I mean, Edgar Snyder, one of the, Aaron Snyder was the one that Ray Geiger painted. So my experience is in a mixed culture of, you know, under admired, upwardly aspiring garage rockers in the city of Pittsburgh. So one of the male workers was named Bernie Slobodniak, which is interesting because it's like Bernie S. Bernie Slanders. And Slobodniak is like what precipitates Slanders, you're a body maniac. So when you look at some of the issues that come around, like there was a fly by night who came through. I used to call him Totality Joe because he was real clean cut, wanted to know about everybody, had a nice smile, and took me over to Lawrenceville to listen to a tape that a guy had on his dresser about the totality. So I'd call him Totality Joe. And he seemed to know that I had been kidnapped and tortured by Kasparowski, who came into a house that they locked from the inside for Salk's research labor team, Ortec, who'd been implicated in the AIDS attack. They worked with Louis Kahn, a Holocaust survivor. OD used to hang out with Adam Kirschenbaum, who'd pass methane every chance he got. They took me out to a farm where there was sort of a gasometer. And this neurohypnotic rumination thing that they did to Jimmy Creary, who they brutally tortured and implanted with a nerve agent. came from the Holocaust Survivor Syndicate. My first ear doctor was Sidney Busis, who whose Precious Darlings wrote the Texas School Book and designated the bosses of the abuse. 7480 is the best number, where Leslie Catchwood read outside Mr. Rogers' church, where Michael Martino, Puma, who had attacked me as a child, would do gardening. And she was the virgin of their Fidelity Syndicate, prosecuting two virgins' pussy bowl as a martial code in the AIDS attack. And of course, Biden said, we'll make equity out of distribution of what UW Dialectical calls sexual access. So now one of the things, there's nothing to the idea that liberals would open their schools, would open their memory banks, would be forthcoming with knowledge, creativity, access, resources, and of course, importantly, encouragement to peers of African American descent. So the scorn and contempt that gets heaped on that idea by the mercenaries in the Black community is uncalled for. However, the overcompensating mission of um, um, self abasement to achieve pardon before the fist of the Black power in the Marshall community is absurd. There's nothing more important to the world's teachings than the grassroots idea in all religions that are worth their paper that dignity is irreplaceable. And what these mercenaries are doing is attacking dignity in its roots. One of the things that constitutes online artificial intelligence society, a lot of which comes from Roger Waters and Mellon Bank for Frippytune, is to persecute me as a poet who had a gifted father and mother and who fell in love with Edgar Allan Poe when I was 9 years old in third grade. To say that he cultured me to be a writer and all credit is due to him for this indentured service. Meanwhile, they tortured me, they gave me Parkinson's, they abused my life's callings, my loved ones. It's hardly cultivating anything but hatred. So I wonder what totality just signifies, because there were a lot of named signifiers. Ronnie and Casper, like Reagan and Weinberger, were used to attack me. Again, called the pitmen, which is like hitmen, were used to attack me. The list of issues of that sort is rather long. Now, when it comes to child um, education, I realize you can't push things with children. Todd, who is working at Sony with Flippytune's partner Sinfield, and Midori Goto, who played a huge role in the other Totality Joe's Pocherama in what UW Dialectical calls sexual access war games. Todd introduced me to Milton Schaap, but he told me and his sister, who he called Sarah Bernhardt, and they would try to make me understand that happiness was a worn gun, was about something else. Bang, bang, shoot, shoot. And I couldn't understand what they were trying to say. Todd told me a story about the de-virginization of Sarah, made up this story about Brainiac being man who puts his fingernails under a dude's forehead and rips his brains out. And he showed me this hole in his cellar where there are all these tunnels, in Cave Hill, Harrisburg, and so he put some sort of detergent in his toilet and started crying for his mom. Somebody put semen in my toilet. Somebody put semen in my toilet. I couldn't understand. He showed me a striptease pen, a Playboy. I never understood any of that stuff. What I had was a turquoise ring that Gail Burson's charge, Elizabeth Blumenfeld, had given back to me when she found out I wasn't Jewish. And they took me to the garage behind where she was bas mitzvahed for a real workover by Donald Ostro and the car thieves of Hollywood in the region. Italian monsters. So Donald was the one who introduced me to Space Ape, the dude who did the stained glass over where I last saw Scioli. So Slobodniak means to attack the dignity of homeboys and homegirls when they get it on. Now, some people say that the Wagner group in Russia are mongering the same Trumpy tune for the Pyrenees. I want to address the situation with Russia for a moment. I had the unpleasant experience of reading one of the American Gestapo about Russia's bid to direct the Security Council at the United Nations. It was filled with bombast and vainglorious falsehoods. I mean, if you make a case that Russia shouldn't be in the Ukraine, you should start from the beginning. I mean, they're rational people. After the wall came down, rather than move in and say, look, you're being so generous minded, we want to reciprocate and give you a really good deal in the Russian Federation, and giving them the territories that were predominantly Russian and made sure of their safety. Now, the ABM treaty, Noam Chomsky said, was rubbish anyway, but the problem with that idea is that it had psychological value. It was a deterrent in the sense that it meant that mutual assured destruction was in place, that people could not be motivated to believe we would win, which is a psychotic idea. What do you want to hurt Russia for? So the ABM treaty, which was negotiated under Richard Nixon, I saw it being negotiated in New York at the UN. Um, the anti-ballistic missile treaty was something that I was a child. My mother took me. Had strategic, and I would applaud if there was a UN gimcrackery that could detect any nuclear launch and vaporize it. That would be wonderful. But the ABM treaty meant that we were not going to instigate. Well, we started moving in with hypersonic missiles. CIA started a war in Donbass that killed 13, 14,000 Russian civilians. I mean, you can make a case that Russia shouldn't have invaded Ukraine. What they've done is appalling. But you can't make a case about the UN Security Council. It's ridiculous. Look what the United States did in Iraq. I mean, you bring in all the issues pertaining to the United Nations when you do that. And this stupid motherfucker couldn't even begin to comprehend that Russia was invaded through the Ukraine in World War II. And on June 22nd, 1941, when Adolf Hitler launched Barbarossa. And we live in a society that's trying to rehabilitate Adolf Hitler. Totality Joe, if he knew about the Texas school book and thought it was a cool idea as a traitor. It's about using Kidsburg wanted to pin the tail on the donkey. They use children as a mercenary army. It's a sick place, Pittsburgh is. And Didi was a symbol of Nazi Germany. It's the Library of Congress classification system. We need better detectives. And they lied about how it came to pass that she seven beauties me in a shed. They lied about the whole thing. I was kidnapped, tortured, gassed. I mean, once you gas somebody with inhalants like that, who's just a child, who doesn't understand bang, bang, shoot, shoot, you have affected their mind. Comprendo, DeSantis? You have corrupted their morals. And Santorum can't comprehend this. He would never stood for a minute for seeing it done to his own children. Not for a minute, but it was done to a liberal children. Done to a liberal children. Yeah, that's a different story, man. We're going to get the black man to laugh. And they went around getting the black man to go, hoot, hoot. The NAACP dreamed up all these Slobodniak stories. Now, the Slav maniac stories, I should say. No poach on Bernie. So they sent me to Sanderson High School to get away from this stuff and taught me to type where I wrote the Heaven and Hell Odysseys. But who's denigrating women now? They obviously found this person who any of them would have described in defamatory terms and put her up on a pedestal. She was an actress for the Mellon Neva Corporation conspiracy. And I never said it. I tried to help her. I invited her into my home to try. My mother was friends with her concierge, and they ran away in a car when they were supposed to be watching me after I was beaten senseless on the streets. My mother was out of town. Okay, that's the reality of the situation. So who's denigrating women by calling them slob maniacs? I'm not the one doing it. These people are poachers on dignity. I don't want to see the women that did this to me. I don't want to think about them. But, you get this idea with Greta Thunberg talking about needle dicks, and guys who want big fat haunches. And she's friends with the Pope. It sounds like there's this message, oh, love is more than that. So that they can make us Snickers. I mean, if Greta and I got together, everybody would laugh. Even her best friends would do like this. He can't get it up anymore because Flippy Tune had him chemically castrated. Oh, there's more important things in love. We don't need a message like that. We don't need a message like that. Just leave me alone. The only message that I want about the Texas school book connected to my name, I have made loud and clear. People did not deserve to die for lovemaking. So, just turn off Moon Unit Zappa. I did not deserve to be poached and castrated for making love. People did not deserve to die for making love. That's the only message I want associated with my name. Now, I know a guy named Moody Sports fan from the St. Louis Today forums who thinks that Bill Gates has something to do with some of the biological warfare we've been experiencing. I do too, and I'm concerned because there was in World War II an Operation Sea Lion, and they've been experimenting with getting the avian flu to jump the sea lions. And Gates, Microsoft freezes up my computer from time to time. We'll wait before we get you any police activities because, of course, SpaceX is on with Skyoli on the phone. And they're saying he neglected to tell us. I told the principal of the school that my life was in danger and then disappeared for a month and they didn't investigate, etc. I went to number 5 to report that the Ford brothers, whose father was working at number 5, had tried to induce me to steal, and I had refused. I'd gotten what they stole returned to the person. Oh, this doesn't count. Flippington says to Skyula and Philippe, you get down there and protect John Schulman because queer rates snitching on important people. So we know that what has happened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has already been finished and finalized as insurrection politics of the sort that went on that horrible day in Congress. But Hakeem Jeffries is one of the perpetrators of the uh, vivisection angle because I'm a white and an Irish. The Jews, we will crush anybody who tries to stop the Holocaust Jews. And this is Totality Joe's needle dick attack on my dignities. Now, if you go back to the 80s when I was in ecology and promoting the Hunger Project, which had hope of ending hunger. Zappa was playing the role of H.L. Mencken. H.L. Mencken was a slanderer, basically, who took it to the fourth dimension with Zappa, who came down on Henry Wallace. Mencken was the primary reason Henry Wallace wasn't elected president of the United States. Harry Truman was. So, and of course, it was all this bedlam because American politics are always pretty messy. So we got this situation where uh, they have this Blackorama going on with American politics, what you can and cannot report, what you can and cannot say about Black intentions in media and the historic legacies of our folkways. And they come on to me with these women who are faking for empathy. They're faking for empathy for Edgar Snyder, for example, organized bar association, um, insurrection finalists in our politics, and the Lalib Nikitas, oh, he did with me, and the black man came and saved my reputation for promotion by Bernie Slanders, and I'm not a slob maniac. He's making me feel like a slob maniac. I'm not the one doing it. I had a homegirl ethic. That's all. And I had more faith in these women then than I do now. So they should have been more generous to me. I'm not allying myself with Russia. I have questions about whether they knew about this business. It sounds a little bit like them sometimes. So what we see here is the black man saying we're the victim, right? Okay, so Duvall comes on to me from CCAC where they run this pussy ball tournament for Obama Nega, for over Maduro Goto. And he says, I know Bush started AIDS and I support him for it because China is evil. So I'm not picking up that trash. They want everybody to pick up that trash. I support AIDS. I support Bush's decision to release AIDS. Now go pick up the trash. They were talking about the garbage troops being sent out from Iraq. I mean, these people were mental cases, but it's called the state of Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania is one big, ponderous, horrendous mental case. And their idea of dignity is something of a carpet that they get German shepherds to chew at. They dangle these carpets in empty houses with out-of-tune pianos. Ben Carter led me to an empty house with an out-of-tune piano in the sky with a carpet nailed on the wall and a German shepherd. These were the people who ran the reckless school bus driving at Kelly School. And he dangled this carpet, and the dog would tear at it, and he's like, get that liberal dignity. Get that liberal dignity. Get that liberal dignity. And, now I'm in Tacoma, of all places, and they've given me Parkinson's. So, the dialectics of garbage has a lot to do with what's going on in the climate change equity crowd. But the problem is that most of us were hapless when it came to the way the situation developed. So we have to get echo schools together. And Totality Joe the second betrayed the climate change movement with the opening of an Arctic free-for-all called Willow. For go ahead and weep, you willow, willow. Because that's what they're always saying. The black man is always saying, you sissy. So what they've done is they launched COVID, and then they passed up a golden opportunity for structural retraining over echo schools because they want to milk the last bit of disgrace from the fossil fuel lobby that they can get for the gittins and the giddy licking chops. And this is a mindset that needs to be understood and detected so that we can teach our children where to turn when they detect something that um, may be detected if they try to turn somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Who watches the watchman is who watches the watchman.